Up next on The Reveal.
Do me a favor. Do me a favor, Austin. Don't ever call me back again, okay? Because you're one of those people, you don't want to hear the truth.
They claim the recordings didn't exist, but The Reveal has obtained them. Now an Atlanta-based collection agency is under the microscope.
We immediately recognized that this was a case of felony animal cruelty.
How evidence studied in a Georgia lab leads to new charges against a dog breeder.
Without a transplant, is this a death sentence?
Yes.
Good news for a veteran once denied treatment from the VA. From our Midtown studios in Atlanta, The Reveal begins now with our multi-Emmy and National Moral Award-winning team of investigators.
Welcome to The Reveal. I'm Brendan Keefe.
And I'm Faith Abube. Tens of thousands of collection notices end up in mailboxes across the nation, mailed by an Atlanta-based collection agency.
Now, the legal department manager who had the job of defending National Credit Systems is accusing his former employer of breaking the law by concealing recordings from investigators and keeping money owed to its clients.
National Credit Systems, may I help you?
This unmarked building in the shadow of Atlanta's airport is home to the nation's largest debt collector for apartment complexes.
You're contacting National Credit Systems. We are a debt collections company.
National Credit Systems, or NCS, goes after money owed by renters, sometimes suing them on behalf of landlords, sometimes getting sued by the former tenants.
I mean, if there was no penalty for not paying your bills, no one would pay them.
Ryan Baxter ran the legal department at NCS while studying to take the bar exam. Once he became an attorney, the first case he filed was against his former employer. Did you ever tell them, hey, this is against the law. I can't do this because it is a violation of the law?
At least a dozen times.
In those words?
Absolutely. And I'm not going to participate in this. That's what I said.
His lawsuit claims, among other things, NCS was keeping interest payments from court judgments in favor of the apartment owners. Baxter says he went straight to NCS President Joel Lackey to report he suspected hundreds of thousands of dollars in interest was kept from the company's clients for years.
And I'm not going to take part in that. And they told me, no, you don't know what you're talking about.
So what did they do?
They kept the money.
Ryan Baxter says he brought to you as the CEO his concern that there were these interest payments that were essentially being kept by the company and not being shared with the clients.
Yes.
Do you remember that conversation?
I absolutely do.
And did he say this is improper or illegal at the time?
Yeah, he did. And I totally disagree with his statement there. It's such an inconsequential amount. We would get complaint after complaint from clients saying, we can't post this. They'd send us the checks back.
There's no instance where a client would have been in the dark about this. They would be aware that this interest existed and they weren't getting it, right?
I don't know if they'd be aware or not.
There's this interest money that is at least partially due to the client in some cases, and the client's not notified that they have this amount that might be theirs.
If it is over and above the amount that was turned over to us, and all other monies have been paid, then yes, that interest payment may have been withheld by the agency.
They just wouldn't tell them, and they just keep the money.
NCS started splitting the interest with its clients after Baxter raised the alarm, but Lackey and his company deny they broke any laws.
National Credit. What is your name, sir?
Austin Case.
Austin Case got a surprise collection notice from NCS in 2016 after he moved out of a Denver apartment.
Basically wanted to see the proof. I wanted to see what they said I owed, So I would love for them to have the proof before.
Well, the proof. The proof is, I'm not laughing, sir, at you, but ultimately you're going to have to produce some proof to substantiate your dispute. They don't have to provide proof, you do.
And I have proof. I have a move out of the 4 months of when I moved out.
That has not, so that's not proof. That's not proof.
The guy got aggravated and very hostile.
That is not proof, Mr. Casey. That's not proof. You allow.
I'm gonna go ahead and call someone else because you're gonna argue with me with this, and I'm not gonna take it.
Austin, Austin,
And
listen
I'll,
to me.
see-
Listen to me. Do me a
Austin,
favor.
what's up?
Do me a favor, Austin. Don't ever call me back again, okay? Because you're one of those people, you don't want to hear the truth, and you don't want to accept the truth. You let those people stay in there. You allowed yourself to stay on that contract. Whatever they did to that apartment, whatever kind of damages they left, yes, you did. Yes, you did. Okay? So I'm going to let you go, and it'll go on your credit and your rental history, and you can just deal with it from there, okay?
Case filed a complaint against NCS with the Colorado Attorney General. Investigators contacted Ryan Baxter at the legal department, who first defended the company. But then the AG asked for those call recordings.
Where's the line crossed when you heard that call?
When he told the consumer that he had to provide the proof to our company that he didn't know the debt. That's not legally correct.
They don't have to provide proof. You do.
It's the other way around.
Yes, sir.
The collection agency has to validate the debt, document it, say, here's why you owe it.
Yes, sir. I went to one of my bosses named Ron. He told me that we should write the Attorney General back and tell them that we had lost the call recordings.
Wait. Write the Attorney General and say you lost the recording.
Yes, sir.
Were the recordings lost?
No.
Ron Sapp, Vice President of Operations at NCS, signed this letter to the Colorado Attorney General. Unfortunately, NCS was unable to locate the recordings.
What would be the reason for not being able to locate recordings? Aren't all your calls recorded?
For the most part, but he is a remote employee, and our recording system isn't perfect.
We have the recordings.
Okay?
If we have the recordings and we have a letter to the Colorado Attorney General saying the recordings don't exist, how can those two things both be true?
I don't know.
We played NCS's own call recordings for President Joe Lackey, recordings that his company told state regulators didn't exist.
Do me a favor, Austin. Don't ever call me back again, okay?
I don't like that one bit.
What part?
The professionalism. Terrible professionalism.
So
That was a horrible call.
So that's not typical of your company?
No, absolutely not.
So do the consumers have any rights if we happen to get any collection notices?
Absolutely, Faith. If they say you owe the money, you can ask them to prove it. It's called validation. You can demand documentation. Also, they're not allowed to threaten you. They can't misrepresent the facts. They can't lie, and they can't use threats of things that simply aren't true.
Coming up on The Reveal. Bones on this dog breeder's property reveal why animals were yelping in pain.
It was just horrible. It was horrible conditions.
But now it's the dog's owner suing for emotional and financial distress. Welcome back to The Reveal. It's an animal cruelty case that made national news. A dog breeder leaving her German shepherds to live in feces and mud, left to kill each other to survive. We found Angela Powell's dogs living in 2 counties, but only one charged her with animal cruelty. And now the community wants to know why.
The land is open, and here, Boss can run free. Boss was the last of nearly 300 German Shepherds rescued from a dog breeder in Montgomery County. Commissioner Greg Palmer stayed on the property several nights during the rescue.
He was the guard dog on the porch.
But Palmer knew it was Boss that needed the protection.
It was just horrible. It was horrible conditions.
Months before Angela Powell, the owner of Halo German Shepherds, was arrested for cruelty to animals, concerned citizens in 2 counties repeatedly called animal control, law enforcement, and the Department of Agriculture to demand better care for the dogs.
There were several times I thought, oh, the cavalry's coming, they're coming.
Did they come?
No.
So Clint Brady made this post on social media, using pictures he says were taken from Powell's properties. So that's what it took, social media.
Yeah, social media is what exploded it.
That explosion prompted Ag Division Manager Mark Murrah to create a list of other breeders that might need a second look. 2 months later, 700 dogs were rescued in Berrien County. Dogs stuffed so tight in cages, several learned to sleep standing up.
I think we're holding them accountable as the best we can as the rules are written.
But it's those rules that are now under scrutiny.
Is there anything that makes you feel like, though, this problem has been solved?
No. It has not been solved.
In 2017, there was a jump in the dog population at Halo. An inspector with the Department of Agriculture reported problems with drainage, causing some dogs to live in mud filled with feces. Others had no shade. In 2018, a complaint brought inspectors back. The number of dogs had more than doubled. There were now accusations of dogfighting, animals being beaten with a shovel, and dead dogs left to decompose on the ground.
The animals were ultimately taken out of that situation.
But again, it took more than a year from the time the problems were noted to when the animals were removed from that situation.
There were periods of time in that particular case where the individual was able to care for those animals.
But that is not what the department's own inspection reports say. While they do list progress, by the time she surrendered her license, Powell had nearly a dozen violations, a stop order to breed or sell, and injured animals had been documented. The Agriculture Department did appeal to local law enforcement, but to the sheriff and district attorney, the matter didn't seem urgent.
They're misdemeanors. A misdemeanor is like a speeding ticket.
No teeth in the law, no keen eye to the problem, and no prosecutors willing to bite. There was a civil suit. Powell's parents owned some of the land used to house the dogs, and they wanted them off. When the judge ordered Powell to downsize, Sheriff Doug Mabin and others in the community hoped the problem would simply just go away.
So everyone was expecting someone else to take care of this situation.
Right.
So nobody was taking care of the situation.
No.
But Angela Powell didn't get rid of the dogs. Instead, she bought some land about 20 miles away and she started to move them. The dogs were tucked in the trees away from the road, making them difficult to see.
And in this body camera video taken during a visit to that land by the Candler County Sheriff's Office, Powell says the dogs are hard to hear.
It's just far enough away from everybody that they don't bother anybody.
Right.
But these women say they could hear the dogs, and the sounds were disturbing.
Being around animals, you know when an animal is yelping in pain and barking at a squirrel.
According to records, there were at least 5 visits to the property in Candler County by animal control or deputies. This is the only one with video the prosecutors will release.
This is supposed to be a sanctuary, basically, for us and the dogs.
There were no laws at the time limiting the number of animals a person could keep, and the dogs appeared to have food, water, and shelter. But as more dogs arrived, neighbors insisted something was wrong.
Oh my gosh, that is awful.
A few snuck onto Powell's property to prove it.
And they came back with pictures of a fresh kill. These dogs were murdering each other and eating each other.
We immediately recognized that this was a case of felony animal cruelty.
Was there food? Was there water?
There were feeders.
Did they have food in them?
They did not have food in them.
Animal law attorney Claudine Wilkins was in Montgomery County and helped with the rescue. She says the Department of Agriculture needs the authority to continue monitoring breeders that lose their license. Remember, Powell was ordered months before her arrest to stop breeding and selling puppies. But Wilkins says she didn't.
When we arrived, there were male and females inside cages, intact, allowed to breed. There were mothers with puppies, mothers that were pregnant, definitely still breeding.
We tried to talk with Powell about the allegations, but she had nothing to say.
He's on patrol.
Commissioner Palmer hopes animal advocates, though, don't stop talking.
I've really lost a lot of confidence in the system.
But he hasn't lost confidence in Boss.
Boss, I know he's happy. There's no doubt in my mind.
Candler County charged Angela Powell shortly after they seized those dogs and then came back this month and added 3 more counts of aggravated cruelty. Why?
They were waiting on the test results to come back from UGA. The lab confirmed that 3 sets of bones found on her property were likely her dogs.
And what about Montgomery County? Why haven't they filed charges?
You know, until all of this blew up, I'm not so sure that local officials really saw this as animal cruelty. Sheriff Mabin says he has recommended that charges be filed and that he's handed his investigation over to the DA. So it is now up to him to make the decision, and so far he's not talking. But in the meantime, Angela Powell has filed an intent to sue both counties for millions, claiming emotional and financial distress.
Next on The Reveal.
I got my call. They wanted me on a plane right away.
A journey 6 years in the making after repeated denials.
Welcome back to The Reveal. A U.S. Marine Corps veteran has received a life-saving kidney transplant following an investigation that raised serious questions as to whether VA testing discriminates against Native Americans.
Well, Frank Sherman's story has been years in the making, where he faced plenty of delays and denials, but at least for tonight, there is also victory.
The surgery went really, really good. Everything went right the way it was supposed to.
Frank Sherman spoke with us by phone from his hospital bed at the VA Transplant Center in Pittsburgh.
And they flew me in a small plane all the way from Grand Rapids, Minnesota to Pittsburgh.
His journey here to this moment took more than just that medical flight. When we first introduced you to Frank last summer, the Marine Corps veteran was hooked up to a dialysis machine, staring down his final march. Dr. Jason Bidash was his private kidney specialist.
Without a transplant, is this a death sentence?
Yes.
The VA acknowledges Frank's kidney problems are tied to his time in the Marines, likely caused by Camp Lejeune's contaminated water. But for years, the VA refused to put him on the transplant list, claiming he was not an acceptable candidate because of significant neurocognitive deficits. Frank grew up on the Leech Lake Reservation speaking Ojibwe and does not read well. So he did poorly on standard memory tests used to determine whether he could care for himself after the transplant.
Because you don't know a word, they think that's a memory. It's not a memory. It's a word you don't know.
But when Carol Evan dug through Frank's VA test records, what we found raised serious questions about their accuracy and fairness, including these notes. Patient performance was scored on Caucasian norms due to the lack of Native American norms available, and cross-cultural factors may have contributed to suppressed performance. But they denied him anyway.
What does that say to you?
It says it's a biased system.
After Carol Evan's report aired, the VA gave Frank a new evaluation and determined his memory is fine. Following a 6-year delay, they put him on the organ transplant list. Sunday, his phone rang.
I got my call, and they wanted me on a plane right away. And they got me all set up and got me ready for my kidney.
I think what everybody's going to want to know is, how are you feeling?
I'm feeling good. So far, I'm feeling real good. I just thank the Lord for this.
The VA says for privacy reasons, they can't tell us anything about where Frank's new kidney came from. He was told someone who is listed as an organ donor passed away. He got one of their kidneys and another veteran received the other one. One person's gift, 2 lives saved. For The Reveal, I'm AJ Legault.
If you have a news tip or a comment on one of our investigations, email us at thereveal@11alive.com.
If you have a news tip or a comment on one of our investigations, email us at thereveal@11alive.com.
Next week on The Reveal, a Georgia veteran dies while in the care of a licensed outpatient drug treatment program.
The state needs to investigate, thoroughly investigate.
So we did.
Christine, do you have a second?
What The Reveal uncovered about the program and others like them in the state.
It makes no sense at all.
That's next week on The Reveal.
Here on 11 Alive, one of the most acclaimed investigative units in the country takes on a new challenge, the 6 p.m. news. I'm Faith Abube. Sundays at 6, the 11 Alive investigators present a different kind of program. The Reveal will expose inequity and injustice. Immersive reporting that prompts change.
Thanks for watching The Reveal, the nation's only local weekly investigative show.
We'll see you next Sunday for The Reveal.